Be ready to answer the questions of like, what's next? What happens with health insurance? Am I eligible for COBRA? Whatever the case is, whatever the benefits issues are that are related there, have all that information ready to go so you can provide that all at once. So they don't have to come back later and ask for that. I have found that these conversations work best toward the end of the day. No one likes to walk in front of their teammates they were just let go. It's embarrassing. Hello and welcome to the J. Sterling Who Show, where we share the straight truth on how we have scaled our family law practice over the past 9 years from 0 to 25 attorneys and doing over $15 million in revenue. And my purpose here is to document what's working and what's not working with hopes that you can take that and you can recontextualize that for your practice and shorten your success curve. My name is Jeff Hughes and I'm your host, and today's topic is, I would say, somewhat controversial. I have never seen a podcast on it, and it is about firing your coworker attorney. So I'm not talking about clients firing their attorney. I'm talking about a coworker in your firm that you have to fire or let go for some particular reason. Now, I anticipate a wide range of reactions, and this happened a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago at this point. I remember this was a viral incident that was going all over TikTok and made its way into Twitter and so forth. And there was a salesperson at Cloudflare, I believe, and she somehow was alerted to the fact that she was going to be terminated. I think a coworker was let go a few minutes before her, and they were going to reach out to her, and they had put an appointment on her calendar, or the HR team did. And so she thought it would be best to record that meeting and throw it up on TikTok. And the reaction was almost 10-1 in favor of her. And I remember watching that thinking, why is everyone taking her side? She's a salesperson. She's been there for several months and hasn't sold anything. I don't know the backstory. I don't know what was going on. I don't know what her pipeline looked like, but I remember her saying that she's made all these relationships and everything is going well, but she hasn't sold anything. And that was the reason why she was hired. She didn't really address that head on. I was thinking, well, I don't know everything, but it sure seems like this termination is justified because the one result that you were hired to provide, you're not providing that. But that didn't show up in the comments, and I certainly didn't add my opinion to the whole narrative that was going back and forth. But it was interesting to me. I got to see how firing happens at other companies. And I got to thinking that'd be a pretty good topic for us to do on the show here. So here we are to talk about that. Now, what I'm going to do here on this podcast is I'm going to break down for you the history of our firm and talk through our numbers for attorneys that we have brought on that are no longer with us. I'm not exactly proud of this. There's some embarrassment here that I want to share with everyone in the spirit of candor and openness as to how things have worked at our firm. And then I'm going to talk about why we have terminated employees or attorneys that we have terminated. And I know that these stories are going to run parallel to some of your stories out there. Then I want to address how to do it well as can be. You're letting someone go. It's a traumatic moment in all likelihood for at least for the employee, if not for both parties involved, and how to do that well and what I've seen work well over the years. And I'm going to conclude with how to process everything in the aftermath. The former teammate is gone, and now you're with your team that's remaining, and how do you process that personally and as a team? So let's first going by breaking down our firm's experience with employees. Let's start with the context of Sterling Lawyers and our history with attorneys that have been with us that are no longer with us. So the reality is that today we have 25 attorneys on our team. I can vouch and tell you with candor that we have an elite group of attorneys. These attorneys have been vetted over a long period of time, over years, and they do exceptionally well in the narrow area that we focus in. But it's taken us a long time to get to this point. We're almost 10 years old now. And I look back over the history and I was surprised to see that we've had 44 attorneys that have joined our team that are no longer with us for various reasons. So that total number is 69 attorneys that we have hired at Sterling Lawyers, and only 25 of those are with us today. So looking at that, it's pretty sobering to see, my goodness, look at where we failed. We failed attorneys that have joined our team, and we failed in our hiring and selection process. So I went through the 44 and they break down like this. Of the 44 attorneys who have joined our team and have left or have been asked to leave, 5 of them are no longer in law. I mean, they just left law altogether. One example of that be one of our attorneys joined the FBI, another one decided not to practice anymore, and just stories like that. That was 5 of the 44. 6 of them said, look, I just don't like family law. And in all 6 of those cases, we hired them away from another area of practice, such as insurance defense, and they just didn't like it. They didn't like family law. They didn't like the emotion that went along with family law, and they went back, in most cases, to where they practiced before, or at least back into that practice area. 8 of the 44 just simply did not like our firm, and they told us that in some fashion or another, either before or right after they left. They didn't like our processes. They didn't like how our fixed fee, for example, they didn't like how we did things. They didn't like the personalities. They didn't like me. Whatever it was, they just say, hey, look, it's not for me. It's not my place. And there's total honor in that. We are not for everyone, and everyone is not for us. And there's no firm on the planet that that's the case for. So those are all good reasons for leaving. I just don't like the firm. I don't like where I'm at. So I can certainly appreciate that. 8 of the 44, another 8 found a better opportunity elsewhere. So in some cases, they went off to start their own practice. One example of an attorney I'm thinking of joined another firm to lead their new and upcoming family law practice section of their firm. Some left for more money elsewhere. One attorney got a shockingly large bonus to go somewhere else to work. So there's been one attorney left in fact, 2 of them left to went to work directly for a competitor to help run their family law firm. Those attorneys left for better opportunities for them, for their families to go elsewhere. 3 left for other reasons that don't fit in neatly to any category. And one of them, by way of example, left for just mental health reasons. They just were having a really hard time emotionally and practicing, and so they left. Maybe you could put them in the out of law, but I don't know if they're out of law yet today, but they left for other reasons, those 3. And then of the remaining 14, those are the ones that we asked to leave. We fired them. We terminated their employment with our firm. Those reasons are pretty varied, but I went back over that list of 14, and they really kind of break down into just a few categories. Typically, of the 14 that left, the majority of them, what I would put into a category of attitude issues that could show up like they really felt entitled. We all have seen attorneys that graduated from law school, and for some reason they felt like that ordained them to be jerks to their teammates that were seen as lower than them, maybe their legal assistant or paralegal or someone on the team that just was below them, so to speak. So that like an entitlement mentality, which to me is, boy, I just want to puke at that. I can't stand that whatsoever. I really, really like being around humble people, and people that feel entitled are just no fun to be around. Another kind of attitude issue are just folks that just don't get along well with others. I put that in attitude. They're super self-centered. They think about themselves, and they can do no wrong. They take very little responsibility. It's always the client's fault. It's always someone else's fault. It's never their fault. And they just have a really difficult time looking at themselves and being aware of their shortcomings, or they're too insecure to acknowledge that they have shortcomings. Like they're one of the few humans on the planet that just don't have any issues or any problems. So that was the majority of the 14 would fall into that. And usually when someone's got an issue around their attitude or something as controllable as that, they're really hard teammates to be with. They don't work well with others. They're really better off in a different environment, maybe lone wolfing it or whatever the case is. But the majority of them fell into that category of the 14. Some of them we let go because they were likable people. They were just downright lazy. They didn't want to work. They didn't want to practice. They didn't want to return phone calls. They didn't want to even cooperate with their supervisor. So those were easy to let go in many cases. And then there were a few that were just bad actors. And I'm talking 2 that I would characterize as just really difficult, bad actor, not great people to be around at all. Those were few and far between. The vast majority of our teammates. In fact, of the 14 that we let go, I look back over the list and I genuinely enjoyed and liked 11 of them. I thought man, I'm going to miss them. They're nice people. I enjoyed talking to them, being with them. So they weren't let go for reasons like that. They were let go for the reasons I stated. And of those few, I can tell you one of them, I just relished the termination. I was so happy to get rid of that individual because they were a drag to the entire team. And boy, the outpouring of relief and joy from the teammates that they didn't have to work with this person anymore was like a big lift. So it was like a major multiplication of wins through subtraction. So of the 14 that left, that we terminated, 18 months was their average tenure with us. So we gave it a good shot. I mean, we did our best in many of those cases to help them along, and it just wasn't working. 1 week was the shortest. I think that was an easy call. I think we kind of knew, unfortunately, day one, this wasn't that person. But I had one time, I had a person that lasted about 2 months with us, and I should have not let him even start, because on the very first day of orientation, he overslept. That I remember calling him. We're all in our orientation room. There's like 2 other attorneys starting at the same time, and I called this individual and I woke him up. It was shocking. That should have been my clue, but I can be a little bit in a fantasy world around helping people get there, that they're just not really wanting just yet. So that's our context for the reasons that we have let 14 people go, and the rest of the folks who were with us, who are no longer with us, that's our context. How do you do this well? How do you have a meeting with a teammate that you are going to terminate their employment with all that goes with that? You're thinking about the impact on them, their family, on your team, those that remain. So a couple thoughts first on this is that everyone will leave the firm at some point. There are only 3 outcomes when someone joins a firm. They leave voluntarily, they leave involuntarily, or the firm shuts down. Those are the only 3 outcomes. So let's say you're the founder. You will one day leave your firm. Now, you may die in your desk, but you will one day leave your firm. So just accepting the fact that everyone is going to leave at some time. And sometimes it's the right thing for the employer to say, you know what, you're not a good fit here. Most of the time, people that are not a good fit know it. They know it internally, at least on a subconscious level. And maybe they outright know it, but they just don't want to look for a new job, or they like the job too much, or they're just going to hold on and hope things change, or that they can coast or somehow hide and not be uncovered for being just a bad fit for the culture, a bad fit for the processes of the firm, or whatever the case may be. When I say that, I just want to be really clear that not every firm is for everyone. So not being a good fit is not a negative on that person. It's just not a fit for that firm. You may be a great fit for your own firm or in another firm, but for that one, it's just not a good match. And a lot of times that's seen as negative. It's not. It's just, that's the way it is. Everyone's going to leave at some point. You also have to, table stakes on firing someone, an attorney, are the state bar requirements, right? You have ethics rules that you must follow, especially as they relate to clients of that individual attorney. So follow the ethics rules. That's easy. Everyone, buys into that. And that typically looks like notifying the clients that they have 3 options. They can go with the attorney who's leaving. They can stay with your firm, or they can go all together and take their business to yet another attorney, or not have an attorney at all. That's the set of options that you need to give your client. So getting past the table stakes part of that, the terminations that are the most difficult are the ones where the teammate, they're a great culture fit. They have great character. They add value. They're friendly. They're nice, but they're just not up to the job for whatever reason. They don't have the competence to do the job that's expected or demanded of them. And it can be even more difficult when you changed the stakes, or you change what the expectations are. So you hired them for one thing, promoted them or pushed them into another area that they aren't competent for, but yet they're amazing people. They're just fun to be with. They add value to the firm. They add to the culture. Man, I can tell you, looking back over the years, those firings are the hardest. Those are the ones you push off the longest, because you feel guilty, you feel bad for them, you feel bad for your own team that's remaining because they're going to lose a great teammate, a great person. Those suck. Those are the hardest. The second hardest, although somewhat easier, are those ones where the person is a great performer. They have high level of competence. They just do great when it comes to the actual expectations and performance metrics of the job. But they're a crappy teammate. They're not good. They drag on the culture, they gossip, they criticize, they don't support the team, they two-face behind your back, they're duplicitous, or whatever the case may be. You're thinking, well, they produce a lot of revenue, they do right by the clients, but man, they're difficult to work with. They don't fit in. Whatever the problem is, those can be ones that you want to try to keep finding a way, but you just end up at the end of the day realizing it's not going to work. They're not going to be someone that's going to add value to our culture, and you have to let them go. Now, as you get more and more experience, and you get more and more courage and more conviction around what your culture is about, those become easier. Okay, they just become easier. You know where you're going. Someone doesn't fit, no matter what their performance is, they're gone. That's okay. That's the way it is. And I can tell you, chances are really high that when they're gone, they're going to land on their feet elsewhere in a much better situation for them. That almost always happens. That's the second hardest, or maybe the second easiest, you might say. The easiest, the very easiest ones to fire are those with low character fit or low culture fit. They're just not great people. They don't fit the culture and their performance stinks. Those people are really easy to let go. There's not a lot of them running around, frankly. Most people want to do well. They want to perform, and they try, and either their attitude or their competence is there. But occasionally those folks will come across your path where you just like, oh, I can't wait to get rid of them. And it becomes really, really easy because they just self-select and you select at the exact same time. So that happens a lot. Another interesting thing that I've noticed quite a bit, there's been maybe 3 to 5 attorneys that have voluntarily left. And it was within like 2 days of us involuntarily asking them to leave. So it's like some people just sense it, know it, and they just self-select, and it becomes an easier situation. I remember one time an attorney set a meeting with her supervisor, and it was like 5 minutes before we were going to set a meeting with her to let her go, and she had another job already lined up. So those are fortuitous circumstances, and those happen sometimes as well. All right, so how to do this? You have the meeting, all right? You set the meeting. And first off, let me preface this by saying that if you get to this termination meeting, I am expecting that you or we, our firm in particular, will have done everything we can to warn this individual, this teammate. We will have done right by them. We will have honored them in every way we could to help them do their job, given them the support that they needed, the training that they need, the patience that they need. I mean, our average tenure is 18 months, so we give a long leash once someone comes in. And typically, if they're trying, we're going to keep trying along with them. It's when their attitude shifts or they give up that we just, we can't keep going, obviously, if they don't want it. Let's acknowledge that table stakes right up front is that you've done everything in your power to help equip this individual to be successful at your firm. But still, it's not working. Maybe they're on a performance improvement plan. Hopefully they've been on 1 or maybe even 2 at this point. Let's say you go through those steps, and this surprises me consistently. This is human nature. We don't see ourselves oftentimes, and even after all of that, some people are surprised when they're terminated. Some aren't. Some know it's coming. They're just kind of, just bracing for the moment. But some are still surprised. We have a hard time seeing ourselves. As humans, we all judge ourselves by our intentions. We see our intentions. We know our intentions. Others don't. They can't see inside our brain and our head and see what we're doing and why we're doing it internally. But others, however, your employer, you judge others by what they do, their results, their actions, what they do and say, not what they intend in their mind. So when people view themselves by their intentions, they're surprised when someone, terminates them because they're seeing their intentions, whereas their employer's seeing what they actually do and what they perform. Back to the meeting now. You're in the meeting. This should be no longer than 5, maybe 10 minutes at the very most. Make this short and sweet. No one wants to be there, okay? Rip the Band-Aid off and don't get into the reasons why. That is not the time or the place to do that. And almost always, the person being terminated is going to ask, well, why? What happened? And sometimes they want to argue with you and advocate for themselves. And there's a time and a place for that. If they want that to happen, and you owe it to them to give them those reasons, I believe, at some point, make that happen. But in the future, let the emotions die down. Wait a week, wait 2 weeks, whatever. Make it clear to them, look, this isn't the time or the place. I am more than happy to sit down with you and talk with you and give you feedback if that's what you want. And I will do that kindly, respectfully, lovingly, to help you understand that we owe that to people that we let go. We owe that to them to give them that feedback. Most people don't want it. And I've never had someone come back later and say, hey, I really want to know the reasons why. I think a lot of times they know. Other times they don't want to know. And so they just want to bury their head in the sand and don't want to ask. And so they just don't want to come back doing that. But if you get into it, the conversation is going to go sideways. It's never going to go well if you get into those reasons why. I remember one time this happened where one of our managing partners was letting someone go, and she, gave the news, you're going to be let go, and here's your severance paperwork, and here's the dismissal letter, things like that. And this individual that we were letting go, this attorney, did not want to leave. and, boldly advocated for them to stay, and disagreed with our managing partner, gave all the reasons, and this went on for about 45 minutes. Now, our managing partner was a new leader to this. She didn't have a lot of experience in doing this, and she's super empathetic and loves her team and wants to serve them, and just let it go on and on and on and on. And it was just really, really difficult for her. And then to make it worse, the attorney goes out and sits in their car for about 45 minutes in the parking lot and talks on the phone, probably just like processing what had just happened. And no one felt comfortable leaving work that day until this person had left. So it was kind of a funny moment to look back on, but certainly was not fun for our managing partner in the moment. They were doing their best and did not want to be there. They're wired for love, not for harsh experiences like this of letting someone go. And so make it quick, make it short, don't get into the reasons why. Have your documentation ready to go. Have your dismissal letter, and they don't have to agree. They just need to understand and acknowledge that they received that, they're being dismissed, and maybe if they're obviously probably going to be eligible for unemployment, things of that nature. And then if you're giving severance, have that ready to go as well, so they can have that when they walk out. Be ready to answer the questions of like, what's next? What happens with health insurance? Am I eligible for COBRA? Whatever the case is, whatever the benefits issues are that are related there, have all that information ready to go so you can provide that all at once. So they don't have to come back later and ask for that. I have found that these conversations work best toward the end of the day. No one likes to walk in front of their teammates they are just let go. It's embarrassing. Be kind. Be over the top respectful. Let them leave and come back at a later time after hours to get their stuff if they have stuff at their desk or whatever the case is. And just do everything with above board, loving, straightforward way. Do it in person. Try to avoid those, I remember we did one during the midst of COVID, over the internet. That was not a fun experience. It just feels disrespectful. Do it in person if you possibly can. And just remember, at the end of the day, you're gonna interact with this person again in some way. You don't want to be that person who did things in an underhanded way and just was not respectful and loving to them, even if you were doing it with somewhat of a you're glad you're doing it because they're not a great person. You don't have to share all that. You don't have to get into emotion. Just do it respectfully because they're not seeing it that way. So understand that. What we do when we let someone go is we've got everything ready to go. So we shut off all of their access to everything. They have a computer and a phone, and so we generally recover that at the moment. We give them all their personal stuff, right? They can have all of that. If they need time to get that off their computer, for example, we certainly do that and accommodate that. It's surprising that these are colleagues that you will work with again. Maybe not in your firm, probably not in your firm, but you'll certainly re-engage with them somewhere down the line, and you want those meetings to go as well as possible and for your reputation with them to be as, respectful as possible. What we have found our best practice is to just notify the firm that so-and-so is no longer with the firm. We do that when people are voluntarily leave. Generally, everyone knows they're voluntarily leaving because there's a notice given. But for those that are involuntary, we just give a general, very nondescript email saying that someone left a firm. Okay, so now it's over. The teammate's gone. They're no longer with your firm. And now you're left with leading your firm in the aftermath of these incidents. First thing is you got to know everyone on your team is watching how you handle this. They're evaluating you and your leadership with how well you treated the outgoing individual. And in many cases, they're friends with these people, with that person, and they're going to hear back from them later on after work that day or some other day as to how that went down. And you want to be able to hold your head high and take the high road no matter what happened there. And just understand that life will go on. When someone leaves, almost always they end up in a better place for them. I can tell you that I've had over 1,000 people as worked for my companies over the years, and I probably have had 20 to 25 people that we have let go or that have left and have come back to me and said, hey, I deserved it. That was the best thing for me. It forced me to take a look at myself. It forced me to be aware of what I did and how I performed, and look at where I'm at now. I can just tell you that warmed my heart. I can just rejoice with them with where they are at in their career journey after coming through our business and us having a chance to work with them. Others obviously are going to resent you. They're going to speak evil of you. They're going to lie about you. They're going to gossip about you. They're going to tell people all kinds of bad things. They're going to wallow in their self-pity. Those people are who they are. They just don't have any self-awareness in most cases, and They can't see themselves at all. And we don't hire people because we want to fire them. They don't see it that way. They see it as you are the boogeyman, they're the victim, and that's the way it is. And as long as they're seeing themselves as the victim, they will be forever, eternally, perpetually the victim, as long as they see that for them. And that's the best for your team. You owe it to your team above everyone to let those people go. And so kudos to you for doing that, because you owe that leadership to your team to protect them by letting bad performing teammates that are like that go. So that's how I have seen terminating lawyers work the best. And I hope that's helpful to you in your journey as you work with teammates that are great fits, like most of them are, but those that aren't, and you have to let them go. That's what I found to be the best way to do it. Have a great week.